I'd like you all to welcome Sir Ranulph Fiennes.
Very good evening, thank you for inviting me.
Where does the urge to explore come from?
Well, basically not being able to do what I wanted to do because of lack of A levels.
Oh really? What was that? What did you want to do?
Well, since when I was born, all I wanted to do was what my dad had done. He was killed in the war commanding a thing called the Royal Scots Greys Cavalry Regiment. And that's what I wanted to do. He was killed before I got born, but I got brought up on stories about him by my mother. And so I thought, well, I'll become colonel of the regiment like he was at Alamein when he got killed. But in his day, you didn't have to have A levels to go to Sandhurst. I did need to have A levels, and I got brought up for 12 years in South Africa. So when we got back here, my level of sort of A-levelness was sort of low. And the only place which would take people with such a low level of intellect was, of course, Eton College. Over a 26-year period, Ginny and I, she spoke very good Arabic, were looking for this lost city where the frankincense export centre of the world in the Rub al Khali, which is the greatest sand desert anywhere. And we did 7 major 4-wheel drive expeditions into the desert looking for the lost city. We knew that it existed, unlike Sodom, which was probably mythical. It's a Quranic version of Sodom. And we knew that it existed, unlike Sodom, because it was on Marco Polo's list. Ptolemy, in the first map of the world, he put that it was there. And so we just kept looking, and each time we didn't find it, we went back and looked again. And eventually, in 1992, 25 years later, we eventually found it. Some of you may have been out there. It's the biggest excavation works in Arabia now.
Incredible, yeah. Do you feel a sense of pride in that?
Well, it was so enjoyable looking for it that when we found it, it sort of, you know,
what am I going to do now?
I think it's 1973, we'd just broken the existing world record towards the pole with Charlie. And Ginny, in those days, it was all Morse code. My wife was a radio operator. She sent this message that in the great newspaper, which I don't know whether you've heard of, the Western Norway one, it's called the Bergens Tidende.
Can't say I have.
It's, you know, even bigger than the Evening Standard. It's sort of... And,
captive audience.
Right. It said, and she read it all out in Morse code, the Brits yesterday break the existing world record to the pole, but our boys are catching them up, which was true.
Yes.
And the Brits took a prostitute on their sledge.
Good Lord.
Which was totally untrue. We hadn't, you know, I mean, we didn't even have toothbrushes because they're too heavy. You know, and certain things are impractical at -40 anyway.
Yes.
And we lost 2 major sponsors in the UK.
Really?
So the Norwegians, ever since, have not been popular.
I was curious about the latest trip, the coldest journey. As you were saying, you'd really rather be in deserts. Why take on something so punishingly freezing?
Because if we don't do it, sooner or later the Norwegians will.
Can we say thanks to Sir Ranulph Fiennes?